All right, here we are up to day 8 of the R Advent Calendar 2019. Wow, this looks like a little bit bigger than what we've been doing before. We're going to start out by reading in some data. Awesome. We're going to use the function called read CSV, and this will work if it's in our working directory. It looks like it wants us to assign it to this value sl.dat, and then we're going to inspect it. Alright, I am going to go ahead and just load it, and then we'll work through it. So let's pop back over to our studio. We'll call this reading data on day 8, and did I not copy? I did not. Let's try it again. Alright, now, one thing I've noticed immediately is that we bumped into this Windows quote bug that I talked about before. So get rid of those quotes and make sure that it's just surrounded in regular straight quotes, double quotes. Single quotes will work as well, actually, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, so assuming that we are in the proper working directory, which we should be, you can always check it as usual with getwd and make sure that you are in the directory that has all of the files from the Google Drive that you downloaded. And we run that. Now we see something kind of interesting in the upper right. You can see that the environment pane has sort of broken apart a little bit, and we can see that we have a section called data and a section called values. And that's because the structure is a little bit different. The data has, it says 33 observations of 9 variables. If we just type in sl.dat down on the line down here, you can see that it prints out a whole bunch of stuff. So the console now has sort of dumped out everything, and you can see across the top are what would typically be like column names in Excel. So there's something called a name, kilometers per carat, bag underscore space, deer power, width, weight. This is pretty funny actually. So there's a really well-known, heavily used data set built into R called empty cars, which is data from some 1974 magazine about different statistics for cars in the United States. And this data set, I can tell just because I've seen empty cars so often. Well, and I think it mentions it in the... Somewhere in here it says it's like modified. Oh yeah, down here. The data are based on empty cars. Anyway, so it's just kind of funny. Let's move along. So we can see that we have a name and then various values in these other columns, including the bells, the reins, the color, everything else. Okay? And so that has just read in a file, which is really handy. So as long as you have your data in what's called a comma-separated variable format, R can read it in directly using this read.csv function. I wanted to just pop open this file real quick to show you what it looks like. If you haven't seen comma-separated values before, it's a very simple format. You can see it just has each value with a comma in between it, and then each line is a new row. And so the first line, automatically when R reads in the CSV file, that first line is considered to be the column names, and then everything below that is an entry in the data. Okay, so I think that's all it asks us to do. Let's check out this str function to get a summary of the data set. So if we come down here and we type in str, which stands for structure, again, as usual, you can see that with the question mark. I apologize, RStudio's autocomplete is aggressive. We can see that question mark str says it's going to display the structure of an R object. And so when we run that, it tells us that we have 33 observations or rows of 9 variables. We have name, which is read in as a factor. We'll talk about all this stuff later on. Kilometers per carat is a number. Backspace is a number. Deer power is an integer, which means it's a whole number. And everything else is integers pretty much. All right, so that's how you read data into R. And so we've just parsed this file, this CSV file, comma separated variable file, using the read.csv function. We've assigned it to the object sl.dat, which we now have in our environment, and we can work with a little more. One thing before I go, you can also click on this little blue arrow in RStudio to get an output that looks very similar to what we get from the str function running directly in the console. And this can just give you a quick glance at what your data looks like. Again, I'm not going to jump ahead. There's lots of things I'd like to show you, but I'm going to hold off, and we will just see if that pops up in day 9 tomorrow. If you have any questions, pop them down in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you in 24 hours.